Thanks for tuning into Duckbricks. I'm Chris, and welcome to our second ever LEGO Bionicle MOCist interview, where today we are sitting down with famed Bionicle MOCist WombatCombatPictures, who is most notable for designing the canon model for Artaka with his mask of creation and the full sand green and gunmetal color scheme, but also has worked on a variety of other MOCs, 43 of which he actually has instructions currently available for purchase right now. Just for $1 each, he is selling all of his instructions. So that's a really good deal. That's something I've availed of, and right here you can see 6 of his different builds. I've actually gotten the chance to build 6 models. Obviously the canon Artaka was kind of the big main one that he was able to work on. I also was able to build Karzani, Artaka's brother, as well as some of the great beings and a Batera modeled after the canon design. WombatCombatPictures is one of the most talented MOCists out there today. I am consistently absolutely blown away by the amount of detail, color blocking, texture blocking that he's able to factor into these builds. And so for today, we have quite a fun interview planned. We're going to be talking through his inspiration sources. He'll be giving tips and tricks for people wanting to get into mocking or want to improve their mocking abilities. And he'll also be sharing kind of his background with Bionicle, and plans he may have for future builds. And so, without further ado, let's jump right into things, and I am proud to welcome WombatCombatPictures to the Duckbricks channel for our second Bionicle creator interview. Let's go. Okay, so here we are sitting down with our interview with WombatCombatPictures. I have all 6 of the models that I've built of his lined up in front of me. We have Artaka, who of course is now canon in the Bionicle universe thanks to the TTV canon contest. We have Karzani, who is based off of the canon artwork depiction, goes paired alongside very well with his brother here. You have a Batera, as well as 3 imaginations of the great beings, which obviously these are very much non-canon. They're basically just interpretations of maybe what the great beings could have looked like in the universe on Bar Magna. So really cool to see all sorts of different unique builds here. Let's go on and give Wombat a call and start this interview.
Hey, hello.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for joining. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Awesome. Glad we were able to find a time to talk, because I've been excited to have you on. I know that we've had you on some videos in the past in terms of specifically like the prototypes discussion and stuff like that, but never really a one-on-one conversation. I feel like I've built enough of your models that it made sense to finally have you on the podcast. I've got all of the models I've built of yours in front of me now, so in case we want to talk about any of them, I've got all 6 of them up here, so we are all
Nice.
Good to go.
Yeah, I've got some of them up here as well if I need to pull
Fantastic.
pull any of them down. So
That is really cool how you have them all on the shelf here.
thank you. And of course I've got the big man himself.
Of
next
course,
to me.
yes.
So, arguably the most important one.
Arguably so, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
well,
go ahead.
yeah, no, I just figured for this kind of type of video, I was thinking we could probably have some conversations about who you are as a person, as a builder, what got you into building, stuff like that. Similar to how I did an interview with Forge of Artaka actually a few months back. I do have a hard stop at 5:30, if that's okay, 5:30 PST, so about an hour and a half from now, but hopefully,
Okay.
Oh, Kanohi's twisting here, I just want to make sure it doesn't fall. That we are
You gotta
able
be careful
to,
with that one.
yeah, to finish up on time. And I think that probably what could make sense is, why don't you introduce yourself first to viewers who might not know who you are, and talk a little bit about what you are, what you do, and what kinds of MOCs that you build.
Alrighty. Well, hello. I am WombatCombatPictures, also known as Connor Hoffman. I usually flip that around, but sometimes. But yeah, I'm a well-known MOCist in the Bionicle community. I've been part of the Bionicle community online for about 10 years, I'd say.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I've been a fan of Bionicle since 2001, so it's sort of been my whole childhood and my whole adulthood at this point. But yeah, I got into Bionicle in 2001. First set was the Mictoran Huki, and
Nice.
first canister set was not Kopaka, Pohatu. Got that for like my birthday or something back in the day. But yeah, ever since then, I've just been fascinated by Bionicle, the story, the toys, the building system, everything about that. And yeah, my whole childhood, I was constantly playing around with the Bionicle, the building system,
Yes.
and trying to make MOCs and stuff with it, and it it turned into kind of a skill of mine, I guess. Yeah, with sorry, my brain is blanking. I should have
No worries.
taken notes for this. But yeah, so back in I want to say probably around 2008, I really got into like the online community and kind of a bit more of the Bionicle community online sphere.
Was that BZ Power or?
No, I didn't actually start on BZ Power.
Oh.
I wasn't one of the OGs, no, unfortunately. But my BZ Power was actually mock pages.
Oh,
and,
right.
That's where my my mocking career really started. I was a fan of like Bionicle YouTube channels like Shadow Gear and Legomation Studio, and when the news hit that Bionicle was getting canceled, like, you know, everyone was devastated.
Yep.
You gotta. I was immediately inspired though, because up until that point I was what I called myself was a Bionicle collector. I wouldn't say I was anywhere close to a full collection, but my whole shtick up to that point was keeping them all in the canisters unassembled, so that whenever I wanted to, I could dump them out, reassemble them, play with them for a bit, and then I would always take them apart, put them back in the canisters, and put away.
Huh.
But yeah, I was weird.
No, I get it. Like, that's a valid way to play with sets. That's really interesting. Easier to do that with Bionicles than like any other Lego set, I think.
It truly is. Like the packaging actually has a function.
Yes.
Most of the time.
Well, yes.
Yeah, but after that point, I got inspired mostly due to Shadow Gear 6335, and I decided to start just building whatever came to mind with all of my Lego. I guess all of my Lego, technically, mostly Bionicle. But yeah, after that point, it was all like just building and building on top of that. Like, not just the mocks, but the story behind the mocks.
Right.
Everything I do when it comes to building mocks and making a story is all in service of making my my personal Bionicle alternate timeline story that I've been developing. To say the least.
We definitely want to talk more about that later in the video, so I have quite a lot of questions on that, but yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, so the mocking journey from there basically went like I started building original characters, built myself a self-mock, and then from there I was giving the backstories, and then I was linking the backstories together, and then now 10 years after that, here I am. I made a book. I have a website. It's all really coming together. So yeah, is there any other? Did I miss anything?
No, I mean, I think you covered it all. It's so interesting hearing kind of your journey with Bionicle mocking and how and you kind of got into doing mocks right around when the cancellation was announced and you started to build out from there. I have to say that I think your mocks are some of the most mind-blowing, at least to me, going out in the community. And this is not, I'm not saying this just because you're on. I mean, I when I look at the images of your mocks, I am absolutely astonished at how you're able to get color blocking and shapes and patterns to emerge from a lot of the G1 pieces, but also System and CCBS and Technic especially. And I feel like the builds that you do really blend together a lot of different Lego systems, and they're unlike anything that we've ever gotten officially from G1, of course, or even from G2, but they still feel like they belong and inhabit the Bionicle world, and I think that's really impressive, because it's easy to go crazy in one direction and push things way too far out, but I feel like if I see your mocks, I'm like, yeah, that belongs in the Bionicle world, but then you zoom in even closer, and I'm like, whoa, how is that, like, thigh constructed, or how is that upper arm constructed? That's crazy, and that's just so cool to me, and for viewers who don't know, you actually post instructions to a lot of your builds on your Patreon. Is that right?
Yeah, I've since like 2020, I think, just about, I've been posting pretty regularly. I think at least normally once a month on Patreon, a new set of instructions, and let me see exactly how many I'm at right now. But I've got a significant portion of my mocks with instructions at this point. Give me just a second here. Why am I forgetting where it is? Okay, here it is. Yeah, I have 44 sets of instructions. Actually,
44.
No, 43. Sorry.
43. Wow.
So and yeah, that's all accessible on my Patreon for just $1.
For just $1. That's how I got access to the instructions for a lot of your other builds, and these are just, oh my goodness. And the instructions, I would have to say, are you the one who does the instructions? Like, do you do that yourself?
Yeah, that's all just using Studio's inbuilt instruction creator, and a lot of the pieces and a lot of the building techniques don't really work with traditional style Lego instructions. So I do a lot of like actual photo taking and overlaying that into the instructions, because we don't actually have full models of some pieces still that are in my mocks, and we're working on that. But and then other things like strings and cloth elements or custom elements I make that need the special little twists and tinkering in the instructions. Those are definitely a challenge, but that's what that's all in service to. And technically only 42 of those instructions are bought for $1. The Artaka instructions have always been free. So.
Of course. Well, that's how I actually was introduced to your builds. Was, I think maybe that's how a lot of people were introduced to you, was with the Canon. The winning mock was Artaka for the Canon contest. I apologize, I was probably a little bit hard on you in terms of stability for that first good old fan review, but then you went back and fixed it and made it really stable, and now it stands up. Like, I've got him right here. He's not going to fall. Oh, well, not all of him is going to fall. It is so amazing that, I mean, I'll have to say that out of all the fan instructions I've done, and I've done a lot of mocks and rebuilt things from around the community, your instructions feel like building an actual Lego set. I don't think I ever spotted any mistake, which is so rare. Like in fan-created instructions, there's always like a mistake where it's like, oh, build this first, and then you have to go back and then stick a piece in from another step. Even little stuff like that, they are ironed out.
It helps to be the guy that designed the mocks in the first place. So.
Sure.
I take special care with the instructions to try and make sure, like, I'm building them sort of how a Lego designer would, where you'd actually try and, keep things stable while you're putting it together, and not, have a lot of, I don't know, going in and out and around. I don't know how you describe it normally, but there's, honestly, Chris, I think you're far too generous when it comes to the the critique of my mocks. There's some things I definitely am not the best on when it comes to making builds, but I'm nowhere near the top of my craft. But I appreciate the kind words, of course, and I do my best.
Well, your best is more than good enough. It is so good. Wow. Yeah. So I have a lot of stuff I wanted to get into here during this discussion, because there's honestly a lot of things that you are involved in and doing. The one big topic I wanted to touch on, though, and I've built three out of the 6 mocks that I've built of yours. I've built Artaka, Karzani, a Batera, and then 3 great beings. And those great beings actually correspond to a special story that you're working on that is kind of an offshoot of the Bionicle story. Can you tell us a little bit more about, like, what is that about, and what gave you the inspiration to actually do something like this?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Chris. So, the Bionicle, my main Bionicle project, that the sole driving force behind every mock I build, pretty much since I started, has been, well, I'll just give you the title. It's called Night of Nights. The fan universe / alternate timeline that I work on is called Bionicle Night of Nights, sometimes subcaptioned MOCist's story. MOCist is the name of my self-mock, and he is my original character that I have basically been developing a story for the past 10 years, roughly.
Wow.
And it's I like it. It's kind of hard to describe it
Sure.
in a way that makes perfect sense, but I came up with this analogy recently. It's if Bionicle was a video game, Night of Nights would be like a mod to that video game, right?
Okay.
So you take the original Bionicle story, and then you maybe change one or two things about it, and then you add on a whole bunch of new stuff, and that's Night of Nights.
Okay.
So, most particularly the lore surrounding the Great Beings. I think I'm probably one of many OG Bionicle fans who aren't super satisfied with the explanation of the Great Beings just simply being really, really smart Glatorian whose science is so advanced it could be confused with magic. I mean, Greg's a sci-fi writer, and I like that about him, and he does amazing work. But personally, the Bionicle, to me, the Bionicle story really felt like it was ramping up to a very Great Being centric plotline.
Yeah.
Especially towards the end there when he was writing the serials, the final serials. So it just felt like a little bit underwhelming to hear that, they're just really smart Glatorians.
Yeah, just like really smart regular dudes,
Yeah. So what Night of Nights does in the Glatorian, in the Great Being realm, is it gives them an additional layer on top of that, where yes, technically they are just Glatorian, but that's only physically. Mentally, they are actually 10th dimensional godlike beings, like they should have been, and have their own like character motivations and conflict of interests and stuff like that. Stuff that really like gives them a lot of depth and kind of, in a way, at least a way that makes sense to me, explains a lot of their quirks and weird factors.
Yeah.
in behind their designs and their overarching plot randomness. Basically, if something was weird in the Bionicle story originally, they explained it with either Artaka made it and teleported it there, or it was something the Great Beings did as an experiment.
Yeah.
So
pretty much just boiled down to that.
Both of those things now.
So,
but yeah, the concept behind the Great Beings being a lot more godlike is something I really heavily explored, both in the mocks I've built and in the story. Maybe not directly in the books I'm writing, but like in the world building for the story especially. There's a lot of Great Being lore that I've worked on and integrated into it. So mostly original Great Beings, but also the canon Great Beings as well have been given their additional skin.
Yes, like the cursed Great Being. This one right here, right?
He has a name now, yeah. It's
Tomidas? Yeah.
Yeah. And he's, His design is kind of Skekti inspired because he was helped to be freed by Vizon and
makes sense.
Yada, yada, yada.
There you go.
The cursed chains all over him and stuff like that. So
very, very
cool.
That's
I'm going to read you off of a little blurb from my website here.
Sure thing.
It basically breaks it down into its fundamental points. Night of Nights is an alternate timeline continuation of the Bionicle story. So things happen in the past that caused a butterfly effect of cause and effect to ripple through the timeline and change things up a little bit. Most of everyone's canon knowledge of the Bionicle G1 universe will hold up going into the fan fiction, but there's certain things that's changed. And the project, the Night of Nights, follows mostly new characters, and in addition, sorry, I'm having a little bit of indigestion right now. It likes to introduce new themes and concepts to the Bionicle lore while simultaneously honoring the majority of the canon world building.
Okay, well that is really cool, and I've read some of your descriptions that go alongside characters, and you mentioned you're writing books. How can viewers be able to read those books? How can we see those? And what is your method of publication for the story?
Well, obviously, I can't publish a Bionicle fan fiction. That's I'm pretty sure Lego would eat me alive for trying to do that. But if you would like to read and learn about Night of Nights, the entirety of all the currently public knowledge Night of Nights lore is currently available on my website, WombatCombatPictures.com.
There you go.
And the entirety of book number 1, the 200-page book number 1, Night of Nights, MOCist story, Lost Dawn, is currently available, and rather recently too, and is I've heard a lot of good things, including from some prominent members of the Bionicle community. So I think I can safely recommend it.
Well, that is very exciting. If I have a chance to, I definitely love to read it as well, because this is really cool. I love how you're making your own story that's kind of an alternate expansion to the Bionicle world. That's I mean, I think I agree with a lot of the points you were saying about the great beings, and it almost felt like there was a larger plan for them, and then when Bionicle got canceled, it was just like, oh yeah, they're just like Smart Glatorian. What are we going to do? It's not like we have 10 more years worth of story that we can play around with them. So I like what you were doing by expanding.
I kind of feel like Greg walked that back a little in the Q&As afterwards, just to try and, level out the story a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Well, other questions, I mean, kind of completely switching topic, going from story into builds. I had a few questions about how do you come up with the look and feel? And this is a big question, so please feel free to take your time. I feel that every single one of the builds you create, especially for the original characters, is 100% unique. They each have their own type of aesthetic to them, different color scheme, color blocking. What inspires you when going into building these and coming up with like the color schemes? Like, for example, you were talking about how the cursed being to Midas has like the chains wrapped around him, and I'm looking at like the Kanohi great being, and this is like a very bright orange and blue color scheme with like such a unique usage of the Vahi as part of like a growth on the side of the head there. That's so cool. How do you come up with these ideas and I guess implementing those ideas? Like, do you sketch things out first? What is your build process of making a character like this?
Well, I can't take all the credit. There's one primary source of inspiration that has that supersedes everything else in my Bionicle mocking career, almost as much as Bionicle itself does, and that is there's a series of Japanese indie games titled the Toho Project, just generally, which literally just translates to the Eastern Project. Which it's
there you go.
It's a series of games made by one dude, and I have more respect in the world for him, almost as much as respect for him as many of the like creators of Bionicle, for example. Like that's how big of an inspiration this series is to me.
Okay.
My main draw towards the series is its music, because it's absolutely fantastic, but a lot of the world building in this story is highly inspiring for me to create my own story, and a lot of references are there in both my mocks and my story. So for instance, Kanohi, for example, a lot of the design motifs about Kanohi, let me get you a picture here, were inspired by a Toho character named Hata no Kokoro. And let me get you a picture of this character, and you can probably see the design influences I inferred here. Let me see, copy image, here we go. So I'm sharing this in Discord down here. You can basically see
there you go.
Everything unique about Kanohi was inspired by this character. So the whole concept for this character was basically brought in from this Toho character, and also there's a meme image I should show you. Someone drew her with Bionicle masks. So, here we go. And Takanuva's staff, and
there you go.
This image was also highly inspirational. As you can see, it's literally Kanohi, but as an anime girl. But yeah, that's probably, I would say, you could probably assume that anything cool or creative about my builds was probably inspired by a character design from Toho Project.
You put your own spin on it, though. I mean, you've got a lot of unique things going on.
Yeah, the obviously most of the prime concepts from Kanohi were inspired by this character, but I still implemented the function into it. The color scheme is more unique, and there's something to be said about the actual build itself was all me. So
yeah, absolutely. No,
that's I would say probably if there isn't a Toho character that inspires one of my original characters, it's either a canon character I'm revamping, or it's just something that came to me originally, which honestly is the rarest one. But the excuse me. Sorry about that. The way I design a mock, usually I will have the concept already planned out in advance, mostly because of inspiration from other sources. But typically how I go about attempting a build is I usually just use what I've got. I'll try and if there's something specific I want to go for, like for instance, Kanohi needed one of each mask, and,
right?
A staff, and the Kanohi Vahi and all that. I'll specifically target those pieces and those design motifs first and foremost. But other than that, it's just as simple as coming up with a color scheme, finding all the parts I have in those colors, and then just trying to assemble them in a way that looks cool. That's that's how 99% of my mocks come together, and any cool designs and quirks that happen during the build is just a fluke of the building process.
I think you don't give yourself enough credit. I mean, some of the builds you make are stunningly. I mean, the building techniques are just. I would never have thought of using pieces in those ways. So super, super impressive stuff. I guess transitioning over to the next question I have is, what tips or tricks or inspiration do you have for people wanting to get into Bionicle mocking, for people looking to improve their mocking skills? To hear it from the expert, so to speak, what would you recommend? And of course, you started off in like 2008, you said 2009, when we were hearing of Bionicle's cancellation. How do you think that you've been able to grow your skills as a MOCist over time to get where you're at now, where you make these absolutely stunning, like almost statuesque, sculpture-like builds here with completely like perfect layering and colors and detailing? What are your tips and tricks for builders looking to get as good as you?
Well, I'm certainly not the best, but there's a lot of it's just practice. Like I'll say, you got to learn to sort of picture how pieces can fit together in your brain. That's a lot of the ways I can typically see myself planning a build in the first place, is just kind of having a general knowledge of the pieces, and that mostly just comes from playing with the toy for a long time, and just having a general idea of how things would normally fit together. But yeah, there's certainly a lot to be said about practice and learning what is considered to be the ideal the ideal techniques for creating mocks, like texture matching, color blocking, just learning those basic skills. I'd say it's hard. It's easier said than done to learn color blocking and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you definitely need to have a wide assortment of pieces to choose from if you really want to be able to have that freedom to color block and texture match and all that. Mm-hmm. And I'm more of a just sort of go wild, do what you like, and if you like it, it's cool and good for you.
Yeah,
sort of thing. So I personally don't think there's any such thing as a bad mock, but I can't say that while also saying I've improved as a builder over the years. So
sure.
Typically speaking, you want to try and look at a lot of other builders, what they do, and how they work to try and achieve different looks and feels for things. And I think here's my secret when it comes to the whole Bionicle aesthetic trick. A lot of really good MOCists in the community will swear by texture matching, but personally, I think this is a technique that I don't know if people have ever heard of, but I've combined color blocking and texture matching, and then swapped the words around to texture blocking, and it's sort of the technique I use. I don't really say I use it on purpose, but it's more or less just kind of like if you can get similar sections of a build looking texture-wise consistent, overall the whole build is going to look consistent, even if the textures aren't consistent through the whole build, if that makes sense.
I see. Yeah, that's really cool.
I think that is personally, that's my hypothesis, is that's how you achieve the quote-unquote Bionicle look, is you can implement smooth textures just as long as you put smooth textures next to other smooth textures and don't just randomly scatter things everywhere, But those are my tips. I mean,
okay. Those are amazing tips.
If you really want to get super good at building mocks and learning how to improve, there are communities for that specifically. I'm not typically one who will swear by trying to improve your skills. I more or less just kind of work with what I've got.
Yeah.
But there's communities for that, like Ben Cossey has a whole series on YouTube of the Bionicle Inspiration series, where he explains how a whole lot of really nice builds are done and cool techniques you can use there. Or if you're looking for a bit more tough love critique, there's the Masterpiece Flickr and Discord groups. They're sometimes pretty merciless, but as long as you're going in there expecting that, then there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, there's plenty of ways to improve, and I'd say the number one way is just practice and learn how to use the pieces you've got in creative and fun ways, and just have fun with it.
Well, there you go. You heard it here first. Texture blocking. That is the first I've heard of that, but that is really clever. And just looking at the mocks here, I definitely can see that. Wow. Well, thank you for the tips. Those are super helpful, and I'm sure folks watching as well will be thankful for getting those tips for building. I guess I'm trying to keep this as quicker as possible. We've had a request to make shorter videos, so I'm going to try to go through my questions as fast as we can. The next question I did have, though, is talking about Artaka. I think a lot of people are going to have questions about that and the build process for it. So specifically going into how Artaka was made, and then after the fact, how you're able to go back and improve the actual friction and stability of the legs and everything. Can you talk a little bit more about what your creative process was for Artaka himself? Because this is the big one. This is the canon one. This is officially what he looks like in the Bionicle universe. So congratulations on that. That is so cool.
Thank you.
And I'd love to hear also what you think about the canon mask of creation now, because that's a really, really interesting design. How do you think it matches up with your build? And overall, how was your experience putting this together?
Well, I'll answer the quick question first. I love the Canon Mask of Creation.
Yes.
The design is absolutely amazing. I don't know how anyone could not like it. Yeah. I mean, to be honest. Personally, I like displaying my mock with the mock I entered the contest with, because I designed it with that mask in mind.
Sure.
It's just my personal preference when it comes to displaying it physically. But it's also a little bit having to do with the way the mask looks on the mock physically. Sure. But I love the Canon mask a lot. I've got one of them printed and up on my shelf on display constantly, right next to him all the time.
Nice.
And yeah, I mean, I love both King K's and Galva's designs equally. Yeah. But yeah, they're that's just my general thoughts on the whole thing. I think Galva did a great job designing it, and it certainly looks great on the winning artwork, especially.
Oh yeah.
So the process for Artaka, this is it's going to be a little bit anticlimactic, but
Sure.
I just designed him in the most, I would say, probably crowd-pleasing way I possibly could.
There you go.
So-
Sometimes you have to do that for a contest.
Yeah. So my Artaka was the second TTV canonization contest and the second TTV canonization contest I entered.
That's right.
I did enter the Helrix contest with my own personal Fanon Helrix that I've had built long since before the contest restarted.
Oh, wow.
And I have some controversial things about my Helrix.
Sure.
Mostly, she's not super frail, and she has fins/wings on her back. So
Yes.
I wasn't fully expecting to win that contest at all. I was more or less just trying to see if I could maybe, nudge the cannon a little bit in my favor. But obviously that didn't turn out the way I maybe foolishly hoped. But with Artaka specifically, first of all, Artaka is a very vital character in my story. So building the original form of Artaka, the canon quote-unquote form of Artaka, was something I always kind of wanted to do. And then the TTV canonization contest just kind of pushed me towards doing that. And then, so after, basically learning both through observation and through controversy what the TTV canonization contests were really looking for, what the Bionicle community was looking for, when it comes to these canonization contests. Definitely not Hosrix.
Oh boy.
After kind of testing the waters a little bit and learning what they were looking for, I kind of came up with the criteria for Artaka. So I determined the most popular color scheme was probably going to be sand green, solely sand green, and gunmetal, because that just looks really cool. I knew that he needed to, look. I knew what he generally should kind of look like, obviously, from the descriptions. But the main thing was I needed to avoid using CCBS shells like as a texture and keep that Bionicle look and feel like as close to what you'd expect as possible. I just kind of winged it. I ordered a whole bunch of sand green parts off of Bricklink like well in advance to the contest, and then just with everything in front of me, I just went to town. And things like the Ben 10 limb pieces on his torso, that just kind of came together when I was experimenting with the way parts fit together. And I was thinking the whole time, like, should I use these pieces here? Are they going to be too smooth? Or are people going to be offended that there's Ben 10 in their Bionicle? But I think I managed to just eke it past the cool factor level just enough so that people weren't going to be triggered by not my Bionicle hashtag, not my Bionicle. But and I somehow managed to incorporate plenty of Hero Factory pieces, plenty of CCBS pieces.
You sure did.
Gel, lots of system, and even, I guess, technically a Knights Kingdom piece in the final design, which I'm honestly really proud of.
That is right. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I'm looking at it right now. Okay.
So, yeah, that's the general backstory behind that. I was just trying to be as crowd pleasing as possible, and it really worked a treat, apparently.
Yeah, I mean,
according to the poll results, I was like a real landslide.
Oh, it was a sweep. Yeah, that was
results.
That was just completely. Yep, that was so impressive how this model was done. So that is about it for my specific questions. I have a few rapid fire questions, quick ones for you, but before we get into those, I'm curious, is there anything else that you wanted to share with the viewers? Anything that you wanted to talk about that we did not get to talk about yet?
Well, I guess I'll throw in a little bit more promotion for my story here.
Please do, yeah.
Now that the Knight of Knights book, the first book of Knight of Knights is done and it's out and available to the public, it's totally cool if you want to go and read that. But there's a a little secret is there's a audiobook currently in production for the entire thing that I'm still getting voice acting for, but I have like very early versions of them up on my channel right now. They're unlisted, but they're on a playlist link on there if you want to get a general idea of what those are going to be like. But basically it's supposed to be like a audio dramatization, sort of like shadow puppet play almost of the story, in order to make it a more cinematic experience without making a full like CG or stop motion animation for the whole thing, which would be impossible given my manpower. But yeah, that's currently in production. I'm hoping to get that done and start coming out sometime before the end of the summer this year. And I'm really putting all my my eggs in one basket here, to say the least, with this story, because it's something I'm really passionate about and something that I want to share with the Bionicle community, and I'm hoping that in some ways it becomes something that the Bionicle community as a whole really looks forward to. So yeah, I'm promoting it everywhere I can.
Well, you heard it here. That is so fantastic, and I personally can't wait to check it out. That is so cool. And yes, go definitely check out the links in the description below of the video. I'll be putting in all the links that you send over to me. So if you want to check out the story, Night of Nights, you can check that out down below and hear a bit of the early podcast form. There you have it. Okay, so to wrap up here, I've got a few rapid fire questions for you that I ask usually most folks that I have on for interviews. First question is, we'll put a Bionicle focus on it. What is your favorite official Bionicle set?
That's a good one. That's a hard one. I'd probably say, if I had to choose, it'd probably be Vizon and Fenrak, because that one just kind of checks all the boxes. I'm a huge Bionicle Ignition fan. You'll probably, if you read the story, you'll probably tell I'm very I'm very in that edgy late 2000s vibe when it comes to the look and feel of things. But yeah, Vizon is just a cool design. He's like the first Bionicle to ever have a cape, and he's on this giant spider creature, and it's so cool. I think that's probably my pick.
Okay, well, thank you. So you're a big MOCist, right? You build a lot of creations. What is your favorite Lego or Bionicle piece to work with? That's not like a Kanohi mask or like something like that, like a building piece. If you had to pick one, what's your go-to favorite piece?
So it's kind of a meme on my channel, but I used to do build tutorials where I'd live commentate me doing a tutorial on one of my mocks, and the too long, thin Technic lift arm with the 2 axle holes. That is easily my most favorite piece of all time. It's just so useful, and in fact, I called it the very useful piece. That is literally its name to me. This is a very useful piece. That's what it's called.
Well, there you go. I also agree that is a very useful piece, and it's so cool how it comes in so many different colors too.
Yeah.
Now my question.
Nowadays, yeah.
Yes, my question is, now with that aside, what is your favorite Bionicle Kanohi mask, either for the power or for the looks?
Definitely for the looks is the Kanohi Trina. It's the mask that my self-mock wears. Obviously, the mask of Toomari Motoro, the most tragic and yet cool part of the Bionicle story, by far. The power is a little give or take, like it's a little meh, but as for looks, I really love it. I'm also like kind of a big Assassin's Creed fan, and the fact that it has like the peak over it, it kind of looks like, the Assassin's Creed hood motif almost, if you kind of think about it. Yeah, but I don't know. It's something that's a design I've always been a fan of.
Okay, well, that's really cool to hear. A few questions left. Where did the name Wombat Combat Pictures come from?
So have you ever heard of the video game Ty the Tasmanian Tiger?
I don't think I have, no.
It's a very cult classic video game. It's made by an Australian game company back in the early 2000s. And, I won't go on and on about that, but it's very, very unapologetically Australian. And as a kid, it was one of my favorite video games growing up, and it made me kind of fascinated with Australia and its flora and fauna. if you will. So just the name, just the word wombat was just something that was present in my head all the time. And I used to make Lego Star Wars animations. So they were like, you know, the wars in Star Wars plus the word wombat kind of turned into Wombat Combat, and then Wombat Combat Pictures. If I need a production company, that's what I'd call it. So
there you go.
That's what happened.
Okay. Well, I was actually going to ask you, this is a good lead-in, because the next question I was going to ask is, besides Bionicle, what Lego theme do you like? Do you collect any other Lego sets, or just focus on Bionicle? And what system-based stuff do you like, if any?
Well, I'm certainly always been a Lego fan, obviously. Not anywhere close to as big of a Lego in general fan as I am a Bionicle fan, but I still do occasionally pick up a lot of system sets. Star Wars and Monkey Kid mostly are my two. Star Wars, I just can't help but collect Clone Trooper minifigures.
Yep.
That's like my weakness.
Same.
So anytime there's a new Clone Trooper coming out, I always have to buy that set. But yeah, the show for Monkey Kid was so gosh darn good that I couldn't help wanting to get some sets for that too. Again, mostly for the minifigures. I'm a collector by heart and by nature. Not nearly a completionist collector, and I can't even begin to compare to your collection. But there's something I always like to do is collect minifigures as a kid as well. So I like picking up the Monkey Kid sets that have especially good value for minifig ratio. And
the
characters
minifigs are so good.
Like favorite characters from the show and stuff like that. So those are probably my top two, besides Bionicle.
Okay, well, that is really cool to hear. That's all the questions from my end, so I think that about sums us up. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come on Duck Bricks and chat. This was super fun. I know that we've been trying to make this happen for a long time. Like, we've had live streams where you jump in and be like, hey, let's do something, and I would reach out to you and say, hey, let's do something, and we finally got the setup. So one final thing is that down in the comments below, comment if you have any questions for Wombat Combat Pictures, if you want to know anything more, and maybe if there's enough questions, then we can do a part 2 of this. So let us know if you want a part 2 as well. And that's all from my end. Thank you so much for being on here, man. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, this was a great time. I'm so happy to be a part of this series, and I hope you do a lot more.
That's the goal. This should hopefully be the second in a hopefully long line of MOCist interviews from around the community. So let's rally the troops.
All right. Okay. Well, it was great talking to you, man, and I hope this video goes well.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. I will let you know when it gets published. I'll actually try to publish it sooner versus later, so hopefully we can get something out pretty soon. And this was so much fun.
Alrighty.
Have a great day, man. See you later.
Yeah. Thanks. Nice talking to you.
Nice talking to you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, well, that was Wombat Combat Pictures. Big thank you and shout out to Wombat for coming on to Duck Bricks and being able to share a lot about his Bionicle mocking skills and his interest in Lego. This was such a cool and interesting time. I had a great time chatting with him. And comment down below as well if there are any other Bionicle MOCists or Lego MOCists that you want me to reach out to do an interview like this. Always looking to get more interviews done and to chat with more folks around the community. And if you have any feedback on how this interview was done and this approach, do let me know as well. I think that about sums up this video, so thank you so much for tuning in to this interview. I hope you enjoyed it, and give some love to Wombat Combat Pictures on his channel, on his socials, and on his Patreon, all linked in the description below. Thanks all so much for tuning in. I highly recommend that you try out building even just one of his builds, because the techniques here will blow your mind. That's all I have. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to like and subscribe for even more Lego news, reviews, discussion, and analyses coming your way very soon, and bye for now.